Is this virtually a ransom? I mean, is that the way that we've been treated over this by Iran?
But I think the politicians have been very careful to try and suggest that that's not actually the case. But what we do know is that that money has now been paid, and it hadn't been paid before. And after it was paid, they've been released. So what message does that send to other despots and dictators holding our British detainees?
Yeah, no, I fully get that. I mean, I genuinely feel that it is like a ransom. And why now? I mean, Iran, it does seem that the Biden administration take a much more positive view about Iran, certainly when Donald Trump did. There's talk of perhaps the Iran nuclear deal being put back on. Is this part of Iran trying to show the West we're nice guys, really?
I think it's very suspicious timing, particularly I think if you look at what's happening in Russia at the moment, the need for oil, the need for other friends, and the need that you obviously see Boris at the moment looking in going to Saudi and the UAE and making friends with other dictators and despots who have oil. And obviously Iran does. I may be being paranoid there, but I think it's very suspicious timing. As you know, she's been detained for 6 years. Her husband has campaigned tirelessly for her release. And all of a sudden, now we've fallen out with Russia, we find that Iran is suddenly somewhat friendly to us.
Yeah, and yet we still know, don't we? I mean, pretty much for certain that the human rights abuses in Iran are, well, frankly, bordering on the barbaric in many cases. We still know that Iran has been a major sponsor of terrorism across the whole region. I mean, what's your view, David? Do you think we should be trying to renegotiate some kind of deal with them, or are they just beyond the pale?
I think we're in a quite uncertain times now with what's happening in Russia and Ukraine at the moment, and you see Boris going to other, like I said, other dictators and despots, and I would put Iran in exactly the same box as I would put Saudi, and exactly the same box as I would put the UAE. The UAE and Saudi just have better PR firms. It's as simple as that. They're suspiciously similar when you look at the war in Yemen. So I think it's an interesting policy development, but it's one that's in this stage today has got a very happy ending. You've got Nazanin on a plane coming back home to see her family, and that's particularly in these troubling times. I think it's a joy that all of us want to see.
Absolutely, no. I introduced this as being a happy story, of course, and it is very much so. But I suppose, David, overall, when we really think about it, economic considerations and trade, at the end of the day, do we have to care more about that than human rights in those countries?
But that's exactly the point, and you see that many times. Nazanin is just one of the many Brits that are detained across the world, and the Foreign Office is not fit for purpose when it comes to protecting Brits detained abroad. And it all boils down to that at the end of the day. It boils down to whether it's trade and commerce or whether it's the rights of the Brits that are detained in those countries. What takes precedence? We have many Brits detained in Saudi, in the UAE, in countries around the world. What's more important? And that's the issue that you have.